Welcome to the Creative Commons RX podcast. Before diving into this episode, I want to ensure we're all on the same page. This is for general informational purposes only and does not constitute the practice of medicine, nursing, or other professional healthcare services, including the giving of medical advice. No doctor-patient or pharmacist-patient relationship is formed. Using this information and the materials linked to this podcast is at the user's risk. The content on this podcast is not intended to substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Users should not disregard or delay in obtaining medical advice from any medical condition they have, and they should seek the assistance of their healthcare professionals for any such conditions. Clinical experts created the references, content, and clinical insight. NotebookLM, a Google AI tool, created the audio content, which I extensively reviewed before release. Finally, the host states that he takes all conflicts of interest seriously. Currently, there are no conflicts to disclose. For all of his disclosures and the companies he invests in or advises, he directs users to reach out independently, where he keeps an up-to-date and active list of all disclosures.
Have you ever just looked at the name of a modern medicine and thought, what on earth am I even looking at? They seem like just a random jumble of letters, right? Well, they're not. They're actually a secret code, one that's packed with information. And today, we're going to crack that code together.
So let's just jump right in with a perfect example. A name like glofitamab. It seems totally impossible to understand. But what if I told you that by the time we're done here, you'll be able to look at that name and know what kind of drug it is and even what it's designed to do? Stick with me.
You see, the thing is, these names are built on purpose. They follow this really systematic method designed by international groups to tell you everything you need to know about a drug's structure, what it's targeting in the body, and sometimes even where it came from. It's a language, and it was created for one big reason: safety. To really get this new language, we gotta go back in time a little bit. We have to start with the original system, the one that was used for all these kinds of drugs, monoclonal antibodies, that were named before 2021. This is the foundation for, well, everything that came next.
So these older names were basically built from 4 distinct parts. First, you have a unique prefix. That's just a little syllable the drug company picked to make it sound different. Then you get 2 really important middle parts. They're called infixes, and they tell you what the drug is targeting and where it came from. And then every single one of them ended with the exact same 3 letters, mab. Let's break down a real one, rituximab. See how it works? Re is just that unique prefix, nothing special there. But then you get 2, which is our first big clue. It targets a tumor. The next part, XC, tells us it's a chimeric antibody, which is a fancy way of saying it's part mouse and part human. And that mab at the end, that just confirms it's a monoclonal antibody. Bam! A whole biography in a single word.
Okay, but that simple mab ending started to create a pretty big problem. As science moved forward, the number of these drugs just exploded. The naming system, it just couldn't keep up, and it actually had to change to keep patients safe. And when I say exploded, I mean it. We're talking about over 800 drugs, all ending in mab. That is a ton. And it created this huge risk of what are called look-alike, sound-alike errors, where a pharmacist or a doctor could easily mistake one drug for another. Something absolutely had to change. So, in 2021, the whole system got an update, and there were 2 major changes. First, they totally dropped the source infix, that piece that told us if it was from a mouse or a human. And second, that one-size-fits-all mob ending was replaced with 4 new, much more specific endings. And these new stems are way more informative. If you see -tug, it's a standard unmodified antibody. If you see -bart, it's an artificial, engineered one. -mig tells you it's a multi-talented antibody that can hit more than one target. And -ment means it's just a fragment of an antibody. This gives doctors and pharmacists a ton of extra info just at a glance. Okay, so now that we've got all that background, we can finally focus on the most important part of this entire code. This is the piece that stayed consistent through all the updates, and it tells you what the drug actually does. We are talking about the target infix. This is the master key. So here's the bottom line. While the ending of the name tells you about the drug's blueprint or its structure, it's the middle, that target infix, that tells you its mission. It's the clue that reveals what disease or what part of the body that drug is designed to go after. This right here is the decoder ring for all these drug names. Let's go through a few of the big ones. If you see tacta, think targeting a tumor. If you see V, that's for fighting a virus. The infix key goes after something called cytokines, which are involved in inflammation. Then there's C, which is for the cardiovascular system. See a NA in there? That's aimed at the neural or nervous system. And OS is for anything related to bone, like osteoporosis. Once you learn these, you're basically fluent.
Now, this isn't just a neat little party trick or a mental puzzle. Understanding this language has huge real-world consequences for patient safety. This is all about translating that code into making medicine safer for everyone.
So why does all this matter so much? Well, because a system like this is a powerful safety net. It helps stop those dangerous medication mix-ups we talked about. It gives healthcare workers instant clues about what a drug is for. It makes tracking side effects easier and more accurate. And really, it all boils down to one thing: making sure the right patient gets the right, incredibly potent medicine.
You know, the source material really says it best. This system is like a condensed code of vital information. In the middle of a chaotic day at a hospital or a pharmacy, having that code baked right into the name itself can be an absolute lifesaver. It saves time, and more importantly, it prevents mistakes. And that really brings us to what's next. We've managed to crack the code for this generation of drugs. But medicine is getting more and more complex every single day. With things like cell and gene therapies on the horizon, it leaves us with a really important question for the future. What new languages, what new codes are we going to need to invent to keep up? And most importantly, to keep patients safe?
This is for general informational purposes only and does not constitute the practice of medicine, nursing, or other professional healthcare services, including the giving of medical advice. No doctor-patient or pharmacist-patient relationship is formed. Using this information and the materials linked to this podcast is at the user's risk. The content on this podcast is not intended to substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Users should not disregard or delay in obtaining medical advice from any medical condition they have, and they should seek the assistance of their healthcare professionals for any such conditions. Clinical experts created the references, content, and clinical insight. NotebookLM, a Google AI tool, created the audio content, which I extensively reviewed before release. Finally, the host states that he takes all conflicts of interest seriously. Currently, there are no conflicts to disclose. For all of his disclosures and the companies he invests in or advises, he directs users to reach out independently, where he keeps an up-to-date and active list of all disclosures.